Unless you work somewhere along the Bible Belt or pockets of rural Canada, I'm guessing your day was similar to millions of others out there, engaged in elbows-up conversations around the water cooler about how Trump is totally transphobic. So this Wednesday, the president announced via Twitter that after consulting with generals and military experts, the United States government will no longer be accepting or allowing transgender individuals to serve in any capacity in the U.S. military. The commander-in-chief went on to say that the U.S. military must be focused on decisive and overwhelming victory and cannot be burdened with the tremendous medical costs and disruptions that transgenders in the military would necessarily entail. And man, oh man, I have not seen a collective triggering of this proportion since probably the day the Donald was elected. Celebrities, well, they rushed to Twitter. Politicians disavowed en masse. And a delusional media frenzy in top form, reduced to tactics which didn't so much as spare the utter rewriting of American Civil War history, so to score some lame points off the intellectually lethargic SJW class in public society. So before you head to the cottage or the farm or even to just your backyard or a family barbecue this midsummer's weekend, I thought I'd offer you a few talking points on why Trump is so very right to toe a tough line on this transgenders in the military issue, and as you'll see in a second, why Justin Trudeau is so very wrong to head in the exact opposite and dangerous direction. Now, as you can imagine, mental health in the military, it's taken pretty seriously for obvious reasons, not just for admission into the services, but also for remaining in the service as well. Accordingly, there are many medical conditions to entry and to continued services as well. Now, I don't wish to bore you with the whole list of physical disqualifiers, which range from missing limbs and heart disease to anal fissures and ingrown toenails. However, I thought we'd consider the more challenging category of mental health and illness. So without further ado, here are just a few causes for rejection or appointment or to enlistment and induction to the U.S. military. Attention deficit disorder, or ADHD, mood disorders like depression, bipolar disorder, psychoses, and other depressive issues, behavioral disorders, things like sleepwalking, and eating disorders such as anorexia or bulimia, and a history of suicidal behavior that can include even just discussions about suicide, gestures, or of course self-mutilation, anxiety issues, current or historical, things like just panic, agoraphobia, social phobias, simple phobias, things like OCD and PTSD, while any history of alcohol or drug dependence also counts as disqualifying medical conditions for military service. So why am I sharing all this? Because floats, flags, and the politics of pride parades aside for a second, and I know this is going to be a tough one to swallow, transgenderism is a mental disorder, and it has many associated implications for mental health. According to the American Psychiatric Association's most updated version of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, DSM-5, transgenderism or gender dysphoria is a mental disorder. Gender dysphoria describes a condition in which someone is intensely uncomfortable with their biological gender and strongly identifies with and wants to be the opposite gender. Some of these people, the text describes, live as their desired gender, and many, well, they seek hormone therapy or gender reassignment surgery. The DSM-5 manual, well, it articulates at length the fact that this is a mental disorder and that people who live with gender dysphoria often experience significant distress and problems just functioning. Meantime, recent studies have shown, well, just that. Again, I will not drag you through all the numbers and studies because there are just so many, but suffice to say, transgender people are much more likely to develop things like depression and anxiety disorders, with a whopping 85% of them having shown signs of psychological distress or having been recently treated for mental health issues. The sort of mental health issues that will preclude any other man or woman from military service, be they straight, gay, black, white, or anything in between. Why should people who live with gender dysphoria be any different? Newsflash. Serving in the military, it's a privilege, it's not a right, and it sure as hell is not a social experiment. To quote UFC fighter, ranger, sniper, and special forces operator Tim Kennedy, All that matters is the effective and efficient lethality of our military, a deterrent to keeping America safe. Everything else is just politics. Yeah, President Donald Trump, he understands that. He put the safety and efficiency of America's troops above his own popularity and modish politics. Canada's Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, and his administration, on the other hand, well, they did the exact opposite. Shortly after news of Trump's decision regarding the U.S. military broke, well, the official Canadian Armed Forces released this tweet. A photograph of Royal Canadian Navy band members playing instruments at a pride parade. We welcome Canadians of all sexual orientations and gender identities, it reads. Hashtag diversity is our strength. And as you likely guessed it, the tweet's messaging came from the top Liberal ranks. Our stolen valor Liberal Minister of Defense, to be exact. You know, the minister who falsely described himself as the architect of the key Afghan offensive Operation Medusa. Anyway, here's a statement made by his office to Canada's state broadcaster. Jordan Owens, spokesperson for the Defense Minister Harjit Sajjan, says that the government is fully committed to building a defense team that reflects Canadian ideals of diversity and respect and inclusion. Jordan Owens, by the way, as a quick side note here, is the misplaced young Margaret Atwood in this photograph that is pictured among a sea of men in fatigues and, of course, her stolen valor boss. Before moving to Trudeau's Ministry of Defense, by the way, she worked in Kathleen Wynne's Ministry of Energy. She's a real treat. And she goes on, our diversity strategy and action plan will promote an institution-wide culture that embraces diversity and inclusion, and we will continue to focus on the recruitment and retention of underrepresented groups within the Canadian Forces ranks. Okay, translation, when Trudeau's minions say diversity is our strength, they don't mean it figuratively. They mean it literally, as in military strength, to the point where they will begin focusing on recruitment and retention of diverse groups for the sake of diversity itself. Yeah, only one issue with that, above all the mental health issues and disruptions I mentioned during the first half of this rant. Trudeau's manipulation of our military into his own little personal tool for virtue signaling is actually going to cost us a lot of money. For example, in Canada, 19 CAF members received sex reassignment surgeries for a grand total of $319,000 expense to, you guessed it, us the taxpayers. And it doesn't stop there. The military, it also covers costs for hormone therapy, for medications, for psychological support, which evidently these people need, and financial support for related travel for trans members. Now, I understand I'm not going to speak for everyone in what I'm about to say, but I, for one, would rather put all that cash towards replacing our fighter jets, not an individual's genitalia. Transgenders in the military, it is not an ideological issue. I honestly do not care if you are gay, if you are straight, if you are black, if you are white, if you are transgender, or if you are anything in between. If you are making this into an issue of identity politics and political correctness, then you are necessarily kneecapping our military. War does not give a damn about your identity. You either have the physical, mental, and emotional capacity to make it out there, or you don't. It's that simple. That was a clip from my weekly show On the Hunt here at therebel.media, but to watch full episodes, you gotta pay. If you want to subscribe, click here.